Good morning and welcome to this National Apprenticeship Week event in partnership with Brother UK. We apologise for the slightly late start this morning. We had a couple of minor technical issues that I'm pleased to say have been resolved. This is an event delivered in partnership between the Greater Manchester Learning Provider Network and the Greater Manchester Combined Authority and the Bridge GM team there. And today's session is focusing on apprenticeships with a specific look into how Brother UK support their apprentices, to give you an insight into what happens to apprentices in the workplace. So I'm really pleased to welcome Lewis and Gemma from Brother UK, who you'll hear from shortly. My name is Leigh. I work for the Greater Manchester Learning Provider Network, and I also deliver programmes on behalf of the National Apprenticeship Service as well. And the purpose of this morning then is for me to give you a quick 10-minute introduction to what apprenticeships are. Apologies in advance if some of you know exactly what they are already, but I just want to make sure everybody has a level understanding. And then we're going to bring in Lewis and Gemma and have a discussion about their experiences at Brother and how they manage and support their apprentices from right the way from recruitment all the way through to progression and completing their apprenticeship. So start with the obvious. What is an apprenticeship? Well, it's a blend of working with learning. And the apprentice works, they go to work with an employer and they're able to gain work experience doing a job, and they gain technical skills and they gain software employability skills as well. And they're going to spend 80% of their time at work. The other 20% of the time is going to be spent studying and working towards industry standards and qualifications and gaining that underpinning knowledge that they'll need to achieve their apprenticeship qualification. When we're talking about a job, this is a real job with a real employer. So it's not a couple of weeks work experience that may take place in year 10 or year 12. This is a real business. You are a member of staff as an apprentice. You receive a contract of employment. It tells you how many hours you've got to work, who you report to, how many holidays you get per year, what to do if you're off sick, and crucially, how much you get paid. Apprentices do receive a salary, and the salary they receive reflects 100% of their time, not just the 80% they actually work for at the employer's premises. Salaries obviously vary. There is a minimum salary for apprentices of £4.15 per hour, 4.15. That doesn't mean that all apprentices who leave school or leave college and go into an apprenticeship will get paid that. It's clearly there to protect them from getting paid any less. As I said, salaries vary across sectors and by employers. Apprenticeships are for everyone. I alluded to it there. They are for the year 11 school leaver who would like to move into employment and apprenticeship and start gaining work experience but continue learning instead of going into full-time learning at college. It's also for the college leaver who's perhaps done BTECs or A-levels or the new T-levels and would like to progress into an apprenticeship as an alternative to going to full-time university, for example. And in fact, there's no operation limit. Anybody of any age can do an apprenticeship, and we know apprentices, older apprentices use apprenticeships to perhaps start a new career path or perhaps gain a new set of skills to develop their existing career path further. In all cases, apprentices do not pay at all to the cost of their learning. That is always paid for either by the employer or a combination of the employer and government. So I've talked about an 80%, 20% split. So the majority of the apprentice's time is going to be spent in the workplace. Now I won't go into too much detail about it because you'll hear that from Gemma and Lewis shortly. But the role of the employer really is to support the apprentice, enable them to gain work experience, and the employer understands that it's going to be the apprentice's first job. So those sort of initial tasks and activities are going to be fairly straightforward to start with. And the apprentice, as you're about to hear, will be very well supported by the employer. Crucially, though, what most employers can't do is they're not teachers, they're not tutors. They haven't got the expertise within their business to deliver the teaching that the apprentice needs to gain the qualification. So therefore, we need an apprenticeship training provider to do that. And you'll hear about one of those who's mentioned today, the Apprentice Academy. And the role of that training provider is to deliver the teaching and learning to the apprentice and enable them and prepare them for their Endpoint Assessment, which they'll then complete and progress and qualify with their apprenticeship. You may be surprised to hear there are over 600 different types of apprenticeships, so clearly I can't cover all those at the moment. I could break them into a couple of categories. The traditional apprenticeships that you may be thinking of when you hear the word apprenticeship: jobs in construction, jobs in engineering, the car mechanic, the nursery nurse, the hairdresser, horticulture jobs. They've been around for a long time. They're really well established, successful routes into long and fulfilling careers for young people. There's no need to change them. The only thing it changes is the qualifications are constantly updated to make sure they reflect modern working practices. And then you've got jobs that historically you might have had to go to university for full time and gain a degree in that area before you could go and do that job. Well, now there are routes into higher and degree apprenticeship routes that enable you to do that. So quantity surveying, civil engineering, solicitor, just to name just three. So a huge range of apprenticeships out there. If you want to find out more about all the different types, I can recommend the Institutes for Apprenticeships website, which will not only show you all 597 that are currently available, but also some of those that are in development as well. Just to put a bit of a Greater Manchester flavour on it, these are some of the very large employers who recruit apprentices from schools and colleges across Greater Manchester. These guys might take on 20 a year, 40 a year, 60 a year, up and up, depending upon the business need and how many people they might need to recruit every year. They also take apprentices into multiple departments. So AstraZeneca there in the middle at the bottom is a good example. It's been in the news recently. Yes, they take on apprentices of degree apprentices into laboratory scientist degree apprenticeship roles. They're a drug research and manufacturing company. But they also take people into cybersecurity roles in their IT team or user experience. The same could be said of Network Rail. You wouldn't necessarily imagine that Network Rail needs to take on accountancy apprentices, but they take on a number of those every year in their finance team at Manchester Piccadilly Station. So large employers take on a huge range of apprentices into quite a variety of different job roles. And then there's other smaller businesses, SMEs and micro businesses, who I might also take on 5 apprentices a year, 1 apprentice a year, 1 apprentice every other year. But irrespective of the size of that business, those employers, those apprenticeships are the same. They have the same quality, they have the same qualification. They're just as highly valued, whether that business is large or small. So again, that gives a young person choice. Like I said before, they can move into apprenticeships at the end of year 11 or year 13. But you also have a choice between the size of the employer as well. And finally, just before I bring in Lewis and Gemma, I've touched a few times on the levels of apprenticeships, and it's worth drawing a comparison between those levels of apprenticeships and school and college qualifications that are perhaps more well known. So intermediate apprenticeships, in terms of how challenging they are to achieve the apprenticeship qualification and pass the endpoint assessment, they're equivalent to gaining 5 GCSEs at grade 4 and above. Advanced apprenticeships are equivalent to 2 A levels or a BTEC at level 3. Higher apprenticeships go all the way up from level 4 to 7, so 4 HNC, 5 HND, 6 degree, 7 masters. And then on the right hand side, we also have degree apprenticeships at level 6 and 7 as well. The difference between a higher apprenticeship at level 6 and a degree apprenticeship at level 6 is on the degree apprenticeship, the apprentice also gains a degree and it's delivered by a university. Higher apprenticeship, it isn't a degree, but it is equivalent to that level. So from an employer's perspective, it's the level of qualification that's important. But I also recognise to a young person and perhaps to a parent, the perception of gaining a degree through an apprenticeship is quite a strong pull as well. So I will pause at this point and just remove my slides if I could take one moment to do that. And I'd like to, at this point, bring in Gemma first of all and give us a little bit of an insight, first of all, who she is and who Brother UK are and who you deliver your apprenticeships with.
Hi, so I'm Gemma. I'm the Sustainable Development Coordinator at Brother UK. I've been here myself for nearly 7 years this year now. I originally started as Brother's very first apprentice in over 20 years, and I've now led my way into the position where part of my role involves the recruitment and the onboarding of our future apprentices. So it's quite nice to once be in their shoes and now be doing this role to help our next cohort of our future apprentices.
And what's Brother UK's main sort of product or service that they offer? What does the business do?
So we're an information communication technology company, and that can be, we have a range of products and services from printers, scanners, label machines, secure printing services. We don't manufacture them in the UK. Our UK office is predominantly a sales and marketing office. We've got roles from human resources to sales, marketing, engineering, logistics, finance. We're the office that make things happen within the UK. We look after the whole of UK. Some of our customers, some of them you probably will have seen on Matt's slide just then as other apprenticeship recruiters, people like the NHS, Subway, Amazon, Aldi. They're some of our typical customers.
Brilliant. So I mentioned some of the 597 different types of apprenticeships. Which roles do you recruit your apprentices into?
The roles we recruit apprentices in all completely vary. Our average length of service at Brother is 14 years. So we have to find new ways of bringing in new talent and new people with different, so we have a good mix of different personalities and age and gender and working styles. What we would do is we would recruit those roles as apprentices to bring in that new talent. The roles that we've recruited in the past are engineering, marketing, digital, customer service, administration. The beauty of the apprenticeship, regardless of what role you are recruited for initially, part of your apprenticeship at Brother, what we do is we will give you experience in other roles in the business as well. But they're some of the ones that we've recruited in the past.
All right, thank you very much. So if I could bring in Lewis at this point, if you could let us know what's your current role at Brother, and I believe you've completed your apprenticeship now. So which apprenticeship did you complete?
Yeah, definitely. So I completed a level 3 business administration apprenticeship. So I did that straight from school. So I didn't do the college route, and I knew I didn't really want to go to university. So yeah, I looked for an apprenticeship straight from school. It took me around a 15-month apprenticeship. I completed it in around, I think it was around 13 and a half, 14 months. So it's sort of at your own pace. There is the chance to finish it a little bit earlier, depending on the module and things like that. And my current job role now is recently moved more in towards marketing. I started off in just product management as well as my apprenticeship, but now my title is product and marketing assistant.
Thank you. And who was the training provider who delivered your apprenticeship?
My training provider was the Apprentice Academy, sort of the main one Brother do work with. Really good. Went to their college once a month in Manchester, and they'd also come and visit the actual site at Brother for me to, sort of show them my coursework, show them my presentations which I'd built, all things like that. The communication was really good, and yeah. So the Apprentice Academy were my training provider.
Brilliant, thank you. So, Gemma, I think I wonder if you could perhaps describe the typical recruitment process that apprentices perhaps historically used to go through. I suspect things have been different in the last couple of years, but perhaps in a pre-COVID time, what did that recruitment process look like?
Sometimes, when myself and maybe Lewis was recruited, we used something what is called a milk round service. So we would work with the training providers that we have worked with previously, the Apprentice Academy, as Lewis mentioned. The training provider we use will depend on the position we're recruiting for. We've worked with people like the Juice Academy, CETA for our engineering ones as well. And what we would do is we would send our vacancy to the training provider, and if they have any candidates that have recently signed up to them and they feel that they're a good match for the role that we've sent across, then they will send us over their CV. Or it can just be as simple as you've seen our apprenticeship vacancy on the National Apprenticeship website, or you've seen us at a careers fair or something like that, and just send over your CV. If we feel that you're not just a good fit for the role, but a good fit for the company too, we can kind of envisage that you will live and breathe our values and our beliefs and our culture as a business, then we'll bring you in for an interview. The interview process at Brother is not as grueling as some candidates might feel that it is, especially if they've never had an interview before. I don't know about Lewis's, but mine was just simply they want to get to know you. They've seen all the facts, they've seen all the details on your CV that's come over. The purpose of that interview is just to get to know you a little bit better. Some roles that you apply for as well, we might require you to complete a little task. So this was an example for our digital marketing assistant that we recruited via an apprenticeship route. We sent her away on the Brother website and we asked her to give it a little bit of an audit, do a little bit of a review on it. Was there any pitfalls? Can you make any recommendations? And then we asked her to come back and pitch that to us, and to deliver it to us. That's not a test. Not most employers might not do that. Again, it might depend on the role that you're applying for. But that was, again, just so we could see your style of learning, you know, how you process the information, how you gathered it all and re-delivered it back to us. The purpose of that really is for us to highlight if there is any areas that we might need to focus on with you, and just to really pick up any natural cues. So it's nothing to be scared about at all. It's just simply we want to get to know you in that interview process. And if you're off, we like what we see, you're then offered the position, and from there until the day that you start, you're in constant contact with either myself or my manager or our HR team. We're in regular contact with you, making sure that you've got all your access to all of our internal systems beforehand. We send you a nice welcome card with some messages from the colleagues that you're going to be working with. So we try to make sure that that whole recruitment process going into induction is as smooth as possible and informative as possible, especially if this is your first job in the world of work. We understand how scary that might be a little bit, so we try and ease that as much as we can.
Thank you. Yeah, and it sounds like you're making the kind of the interview process as kind of welcoming as make the young person feel as comfortable as they possibly can as well. So Lewis, you mentioned that you wanted to start work after year 11 and preferred that the apprenticeship route to the academic route. What specifically encouraged you to apply for Brother? What was it about the vacancy that you saw, or what was it like?
So for me, I went to the Apprentice Academy for 3 days while I was still in year 11. Got sort of an authorised absence, so then I could go out to train and see what was out there, really, because I think you covered in a slide earlier, I only thought that there was really apprenticeships in things like construction and things like that. So when I went to the Apprentice Academy, it opened my eyes to other apprenticeships that are there. So then I started looking in obviously the local area. So Brother is 10-15 minutes in the car around the corner from me. I'm a City fan. I knew they used to sponsor City, so I knew who they were. So when I sort of looked into what they do, what like the office is like, all things like that, started doing some research. I did also look at some other similar companies, and I did apply for a few others. I think I applied for 4 different jobs, but Brother were the first to get back in touch. And it was the closest, it was the most local. And then when I went in for my interview and things like that, I was sort of really happy with my choice. I felt it wasn't nothing was going to ever be a problem to get there, and I'd heard of them. Basically, I'd heard of them more than I'd heard of the other companies and things like that, which is always a big push. When I was only 16, there wasn't many companies I was aware of, and yeah, when you've heard of them and heard that like it's good and it's in the local area and things like that, then yeah, I suppose it's always a positive.
So I mean, you've mentioned you felt sort of comfortable, and how did it compare to the other employers' kind of recruitment process then? Because Gemma's kind of pointed out how welcoming they try and make it, and as kind of comfortable and relaxing environment as they possibly can in the interview.
If I'm totally honest, Brother are the only ones that got in touch first. So, like you say, it's more proactive. You know, they got in touch with me. I think it was 3 days after the whole, you know, getting in touch. And another good thing was I was going on my end of school trip, and I was worried that I was going to miss the interview date because of that. But they said they'd do it on the Monday as I got back from the trip. So again, that was just a big, you know, a weight off my shoulders that they were sort of working around me. They were being flexible and things like that. It wasn't just, you know, this is the day you've got to come in. If you can't make it, you can't make it. It's tough. So, you know, they gave me a chance, whereas I think other places might not have done that. So yeah, I think when I went into it, I felt just really, really comfortable, and I just sort of had in my head that the people there are going to be friendly and things like that. So, and they were. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, so it sounds like they really sold themselves to you as well as you selling themselves to Brother. So it sounds like very much like a two-way thing.
Yeah.
Gemma, you touched on the period between offering the job and then the start of the role. So there's a bit of, it sounds like it's kind of almost a seamless transition between the recruitment process and the induction process. I wonder if you could sort of describe that induction process once the apprentice comes in on their first day of work, and how that induction process works in conjunction with the Apprentice Academy.
Yeah. So when we recruit you, so when we've offered you the position, especially the Apprentice Academy, the training provider that we work with for the majority of our placements, they then provide an induction boot camp, it's called. So you will go to them, I think it's for a week or two, maybe, Lewis, I'm not too sure, is it a week or two? And yeah, they will basically provide you and support you with the need to know things before you start any job, not a job at Brother, any of them. Things like business etiquette, communication, things like that. So before you actually come to us on your first day, you've already had a little bit of a heads up, you know, maybe that will ease some of your questions in some of your, you know, if you're a bit worried about anything. But then when you actually come to us on your first day, it might not be like anything you expect. We have an induction process, which is 3 months long. We understand that this might be your first job, so even understanding business language, the way business communicate, or even finding your way around the business, or what time your lunch is, or you don't need to ask can you go to the toilet, or put your hand up to ask a question. We take all this for granted, but if this is your first role, it can be really daunting for you. So that's why we extend the induction process over 3 months. So your first day is literally sitting down at your desk, getting it all set up, making sure you can access everything, getting to know your colleagues in the department you're working in the team that you're working within. We always treat you to a really nice lunch at the canteen, finding your way around the business, making sure you know key things like your emergency fire exits, your fire points, where the toilets are, the water machines, things like that. So the first day is just practicalities, really. Then the 3 month period, what we would do is we would give you inductions with key people across all of the business. Regardless of the apprenticeship you're doing, you will have an induction with the heads of each department. And that really is to give you a top line business understanding. Yes, we've recruited you for a specific role, but what we would like to do is to help you understand how the business works from start to finish, top line. That then what we found is really helps you within your apprenticeship as well. Some elements of your apprenticeship you might need to go and work with different people from different areas. So if you've already had an induction with them and have a bit of a background knowledge of what that team do and who sits where and where they are and what they do, that just helps your learning that little bit better. You will also then be provided with an apprenticeship buddy, and that apprenticeship buddy will work alongside your line manager, your training provider, your career coach, to make sure that every step of your recruitment and your induction, you are supported and you've got obviously everyone you need to just help you smooth into the business and find your feet. And I just want to add as well that most companies, and especially at Brother, we don't have any high expectations. We're not expecting you to come in and, you know, get it straight away. It will take time. We're here to work with you, to develop you, to provide you with some more training. So if you're thinking about an apprenticeship or starting in a new role, please don't be scared. They're not expecting you to get it straight away. We understand that it takes time, and obviously we'll be there to support you to get to grips with the role.
Thank you. So it sounds like there's almost quite a sort of holistic approach to the business, and it sounds like it enables a way for the apprentice to actually see how important their role is and the influence it has on other parts of the business as well. So I think that's a really good idea to kind of get that coverage of what the whole organisation does. So Lewis, what was your experience of that induction and settling in process, and how did it help you with that transition between school, where you've probably spent the last 12 years, and then moving into the workplace for the first time, full time at least?
Yeah, I think settling in for me was something, again, we've come in just from school. It was a big change. I was wondering, you know, what's it going to be like? Like Gemma said, even stupid things like you don't have your specific dinner time. You don't have to, you know, you can't just go to the toilet when you're allowed to go to the toilet. It was a big change, and for me, on my first, I think it was my first week, on like my second or third day, I was taken around the business by my line manager and introduced to every single person in the building. Every single person that I met took 5 minutes of the time to say, you know, hello, briefly take me over what they do. I'd been up to HR, which was at the time at Brother Europe's office, so just up the road from Brother UK. I'd been told all the, you know, the policies and the procedures of the business. So, but after my first week, I knew all the policies, procedures, all the things Brother worked towards. I knew who everyone was after 3 weeks or so. I'd say I knew everybody's name. So yeah, it was really easy to settle in because they made it easy to settle in. And I think, as Gemma said, they don't expect you to pick everything up really quickly, but they give you the opportunity to pick everything up really quickly, because after 2-3 weeks, I was, you know, practicing presentations to do with my line manager and the rest of my team to the sales floor, and all things like that. So it's just, yeah, they don't expect you to pick everything up really quickly, but they give you the opportunity to. There were certain things I picked up really quickly. There's certain things that I'm still, you know, still work with and struggle with now. But yeah, the opportunities that, you know, there's a lot of stigma around apprenticeships that, you know, you're going to go and you're going to be the brew boy, or you're going to do the jobs that no one else wants to do. But I can assure you that at good companies like Brother and some of them on the slide, which you shown earlier, it won't be like that. Age is sort of just a number in companies like that, and yeah. So for me, settling in was easier than I expected. I understand, again, it's always a big stress. Are people going to like you? Are people, you know? But no one's going to judge you. No one. Even if you do something wrong, that you can amend it and all things like that. Is no one's going to be judging you as you first walk through the door. So try, and if you are struggling with things like that, settling in. I just treated it sort of like when I first joined school. You know, you join school, you have a few friends that you've probably gone from primary school to secondary school with, but you're going to need to make more. Everybody makes more. So you're going into a company, you know, you're going to know the people that have interviewed you. So treat them as like your initial friends, and then you're going to meet more people through who you work with. So yeah, the settling in process was great for me. And I'm sure if you find a great apprenticeship and find a great company to work for, it'll be the same for everybody else. And
how useful did you find it? So Gemma touched on that moving around through the other departments and getting a view of what they do. How did Did that sort of help you understand your position within the business?
Yeah, I think, you know, I had for the whole first month. So like I say, I met everybody, but then over the first month was actual like half-an-hour meetings with all the people that I had met for them to, you know, show me the systems they use, take me through what they do. And yeah, all it did was for me was, you know, you're going to then figure out who in your role you're going to be working closely with, who you're not going to be working so much with, but, you know, it's still nice to know what they're doing and things like that. So it sort of builds that initial relationship that you're going to develop over years in your job. Because in the end, there was some people from, you know, digital marketing who I needed to help with some of my apprenticeship work. So it didn't feel awkward to approach them to ask for help because I already knew them all. I already knew what they did. And if there was a certain part of the digital marketing aspect that I needed, I'd know who to ask instead of just, you know, emailing them all and then being like, well, you know, you should know this or something like that. So all that was sort of out the window. Knew what everybody did. And what's good as well is, I was going to mention this before, is that we have had a few new people coming into Brother since working from home, and the inductions are still happening online and on Teams, which again I think is even harder to, you know, to find a job in the first place and to get started and really get the ball rolling while working from home. It can be tough, but yeah, the Brother is, I know as far, well, I've done some inductions with people. So yeah, the shoe's sort of been on the other foot, but it feels good to know that they're still doing it whilst we're all still working from home and things like that. It's almost as if nothing's changed.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's a really good point about how that process has been adapted through this period. Gemma, we've kind of talked about the recruitment and the induction and also the influence of the Apprentice Academy and their part in that induction process. I suppose moving on then, once the induction is done and we're looking to sort of progress the apprentice towards their endpoint assessment, how does Brother support the apprentice to actually work towards their endpoint assessment? And I suppose, how do the Apprentice Academy support that to make it a three-way thing, really, I suppose, between employer, provider and apprentice? How does that work?
Yeah, we understand as a business how much pressure an endpoint assessment can bring. It's daunting. You've worked so hard throughout your apprenticeship, and then it's crunch time. It's just that final little hurdle. We understand how daunting that can be. So leading up to your endpoint assessment, we will have various meetings, again, like you said, with all those parties that are involved, the training provider, the career coach, the apprentice line manager, their buddy, so they've got somebody to support them. And we initially just want to make sure that the apprentice feels comfortable and confident. That's the main one, as well as the training provider supporting that they feel that they are ready with the qualification, that they've got all the evidence they need to submit to endpoint assessment. We also make sure during that period that the 25% off the job that apprentices have, that it is stuck to more than ever. We are happy for you to leave your desk, put your out of office on, go and book yourself a meeting room, get your earphones in and just hide yourself away so you can focus solely on your apprenticeship. That at Brother works out a day a week. Now, whether you do that at 2 half days or split it a couple of hours each day, so you have a full day a week on it to focus solely on your apprenticeship. Take your job out of the equation. So we make sure more than ever that is stuck to. We also get apprentices to present their endpoint assessment to a variety of colleagues in the business. Sounds a little bit harsh, but it really does work. We do that because it gives them quite a bit of a trial run, not for us to kind of give them any feedback on the qualification. That's for the training provider and the career coach to do, but it just gives them a bit of confidence in presenting, and maybe we can give them a little bit of feedback on the way in which they've presented. The more practice they've got, obviously we hope then when they come to the endpoint assessment in sharing their learning journey and whatever their project is, that they feel confident to be able to do that. The support that they've got as well throughout all their apprenticeship and mostly at endpoint assessment. There's a lot of people there. We understand that holding down a full-time job and studying and then preparing for an exam at the end and your endpoint assessment is hard work. It's not easy. Sometimes it can be a little bit scary. So we have a lot of people around the apprentice to support them. So we have the apprenticeship buddy who works with them completely separate away from their line manager, just to give them somebody else different to speak to. If they don't feel comfortable to go and raise a concern with the line manager, they can go and raise it with the apprentice buddy. They've got the career coach, they've got the training provider, they've got the line manager, and we also have brother mental health and first aiders. So there's always somebody to speak to, whether you're struggling with your apprenticeship, personally you're struggling, or you're a little bit daunted by endpoint assessment. There's a lot of support around you throughout your whole journey.
Brilliant. It does sound like it. So Lewis, I think first thing we should perhaps do is, I wonder if you could describe what your endpoint assessment looked like, because we kind of mentioned it, and of course it varies across different apprenticeships, but it'd be useful to find out what you actually had to do. Yeah,
so it felt like the endpoint assessment came round really quickly, and then the endpoint assessment was quite a long process. As Gemma said, the support when you get to your endpoint assessment from the academy and from brother was like next level. And I think as well, it was, the support was really good at the end, but it was also really good the whole way through. It wasn't just like, you do everything and then now it's your endpoint assessment, the bit that really matters will help you. As I did all the modules, and every single one, either my manager would sit in on them, or Gemma would sit in them, or Sam would sit in them, so I can present to them and, like you say, give me feedback if there was anything I needed to improve on. And yeah, it was literally whenever it was needed. I'd just drop someone an email and I would get support or help or someone's opinion on something. Around the endpoint assessment time, so I had a multiple choice exam where I actually go into the academy, and this was sort of multiple choice exam on a laptop. So yeah, lots of revision around that. That was about all of the modules that I'd done over the 12-13 months, all combined into one exam. So yeah, a lot of revision around that. I think that was probably the most revision I did in the whole 12-13 months, because a lot of it was coursework based. So yeah, there wasn't a lot of revision in mine at all until the last few months. And then to build the presentation, mine was all around improving the business. So I picked sort of an issue which I thought, well, it wasn't really an issue, it was just something that could be developed, and sort of put a presentation together, put a brief together of how I think that me and my team at Brother could sort of improve it, and what the benefits would be, what the risks would be, sort of SWOT analysis and things like that. And yeah, when then, like I say, I had meetings with digital marketing and things, because this was all around the website, this development that I wanted to make. And then basically you just have to compress it all into sort of a project PowerPoint and a project brief. And then mine was done over Teams. This was before COVID though, it's always been done over Teams, the business admin, apprenticeship, the endpoint assessment side of things. So I just booked a meeting room out, and like Gemma said, it was really private. You knew no one was going to accidentally walk in or anything like that. The environment was really comfortable. And yeah, just presented, and then the results came back after around 2 weeks. I think it felt like about 3 months, because obviously you're waiting for some of the most important results you'll probably ever get. But yeah, it was all really quick process. So yeah, the endpoint assessment ran really smoothly for me, really good process. And I think if anybody else was here, that has done it and things like that, they'd think the exact same. So yeah, and the support again was great.
Thanks for that. That's yeah, really kind of insight into that endpoint assessment, because it's they do vary. If you've kind of never seen one before, it's perhaps hard to know what it is. So you've finished now. I was wondering what your future plans are and what sort of offers are on the table from Brother, and what further opportunities are there to develop.
Yeah, definitely. So when I finished my apprenticeship, around a month later, there was a quick meeting, and it wasn't anything really serious. It was just my line manager and Sam, and it was basically to discuss, you know, you've done your apprenticeship now. If there's any other learning that you want to do, any other qualifications, like, we want you to know that the option's there. You don't just think you've done your apprenticeship and that's the end, that's your qualification. You know, you can't take it any further. Again, I was only 17, nearly 18 at the time. If anything, I wanted to carry on learning. You know, you want to take it to a higher level and things like that. Get more things on my CV and under my belt and things like that. So I was offered, you know, in that meeting, that there was sort of given a list of things that are out there to do in the future, which would probably suit my job role the best. So, you know, you could take your business administration further. You could do like a CIM in marketing or a digital marketing, sort of like, then it's more like the degree side of things. So I was said in the meeting, you know, I wanted to do a year with no learning, just get the hang of product management and marketing, and, you know, that year's done now. So I feel like in that year I've learned a lot about products and marketing. Worked half of it in the office, worked half of it from home. So, you know, it's been a year of adapting to different things, and I feel much more comfortable in the business now. Again, not only do I know who everyone is, sort of got a relationship now with near enough everybody in the business, and things like that. It's been, everyone's had to pull together while we work from home. So now that year, and well, it's been a year and a bit now because of delays due to COVID. Now I've got my login and everything set up, and my account set up now to do a CIM foundation qualification. So again, this is a qualification which, in my first initial plan, was to carry on with the business administration. However, with the recent move into marketing, I think this one fits better, much better. And yeah, for the future plans, I feel like this, it might be more, in my eyes, I think it will be more challenging, but it will be much more worth it than the other one to my current job and what I want to really do in the future. And that's starting at a foundation level, but that can carry on for around, I think it's around 6 years if you want to take it right to the top. So again, it's quite flexible. You know, you choose. You know, if you do maybe 2 years and then you think I'm gonna leave it there, or you can take it to the whole 6. So I think that's sort of a decision I'll make as and when I'm going through it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a bit more of the learning side of it again, qualifications, and now that the tasks that I am set through work, not through apprenticeships and things like that, I'm quicker at them. You know, I'm better at them now. I've developed in them, know everyone much better. So yeah, to sort of balance again the work and the qualification, I'm looking forward to it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. That sounds like that to me, that the business isn't just taking on an apprentice, then they're taking on a member of staff that's going to be with them. I mean, Gemma mentioned the average of 14 years stay at the business, so clearly there's a plan to progress apprentices beyond the first apprenticeship.
Definitely, yeah.
Thanks very much to both of you. I'm just going to talk very briefly about where to find apprenticeship vacancies. I'll bring some slides up again shortly, and then for the last sort of 5 minutes or so, we'll throw it open to any questions from the audience. So excuse me one moment while I have a potential minor technical issue again. So in terms of Finding apprenticeship opportunities. Obviously, Lewis has taken the approach of contacting the training providers, and then he found out about Brother through them and joined the dots because he'd heard of Brother. And of course, I definitely recommend contacting some of those training providers to do that. They'll work with a range of employers. Over the last few years, they'll have existing relationships with them, and they will help young people, or at the very least point them towards the application process for that employer. The other tactic, of course, is to apply directly to the employers as they advertise. You may hear about their opportunities via social media or via word of mouth, and of course, go straight to their websites and apply directly. One tactic you may want to use that may make things a little bit easier for you is there's a specific government website called Find an Apprenticeship, and it's a live job vacancy website, but the only jobs on there are apprenticeships. So if you looked on there right now, you will probably see a range of different apprenticeships. If you're in year 11 or year 13, for example, you will see some to start February, March, April this year. Clearly too soon for you to start that apprenticeship. But you will also see opportunities to start in August or September this year that enable you to apply for them right now, go through the recruitment process right now, then go and finish your GCSEs and start in September. As we move towards Easter, we start and beyond towards the May half term, we start to see a significant surge in the number of vacancies that are available and aimed specifically at school and college leavers. So I would recommend that. There is a very brief registration process that you have to go through before you can make any applications through that system, but that will take you 4 or 5 minutes at most to do that. And each individual vacancy is set out in exactly the same format, and the key details for the employer and the training provider can be found at the bottom. Top left tells you how much the salary is, how much how long the apprenticeship is. Somewhere around the middle it will tell you what skills you need to have and what GCSEs or other qualifications you'll need to have to apply. So really useful way of finding. Probably about 3/4 of all apprenticeship vacancies are using that system. So I think I'll pause at this point and see if there are any questions. So I'm not sure if there are any questions in the queue that you might be able to read there, Tom.
We haven't got any through at the moment. So back over to you.
Absolutely, no problem. One thing I perhaps would be useful for me to point out this year, and we've touched on COVID and we've talked about Brothers' adaptability through COVID to continue to support their apprentices and to induct new people into the organisation. One impact that I'm seeing from a sort of a GM-wide view and bigger, a nationwide view of apprenticeship vacancies at the moment is the number of vacancies has halved this year. We are running at about 50% of the usual number I would expect to see at this time of year. Whilst that is bad news, if we go back to last August, the vacancy numbers were running at between 20 and 25%. So we are starting to see an increase. One suspects that after this lockdown, some of those businesses that aren't recruiting at the moment, the hairdressers, the hospitality organisations, once they are allowed to reopen, I suspect there will be an increase. However, in all honesty, I'm not anticipating to get back to 100% normal values. There are businesses who may have gone bust this year. There are businesses who may have made people redundant. They may have staff on furlough. Those businesses are probably not going to be able to recruit an apprentice this year as they go through their own recovery period and build up. So I suspect the return to normality in terms of vacancies for current year 11 and current year 13 leavers, or what I should say, current year 10s and current year 12s, I think we won't see that return to normality probably till the September 2022 intake of apprentices. In that case, then, I would, if there are no further questions, I would like to thank Gemma. I would like to thank Lewis for their insight today. It's really useful to hear from a real apprentice and a real employer, and to give that insight as to what it's actually like to go through that experience, manage those young people, support their transition from the school to the real working world. So that's pretty much it from us today. If there are no further questions, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a fantastic week of events during National Apprenticeship Week, and hopefully you found the session useful today. And thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.